I think it's time that I made a proper review of The Golden Dawn. This was actually the very first esoteric book review that I ever made on my Foolish Fish channel. And at the time I was speaking to an audience of about 100 viewers, and they had subscribed, they had joined my channel to watch reviews of leather-bound classics books. And when I presented this, it was a little bit of a risk, to be honest with you. They were all very kind, of course. They were all very gracious and patient with me. And they said, well, yep, that's a bit weird, but sure, we'll, it's certainly interesting. And yeah, I mean, it is interesting. And following that, I was emboldened to make more esoteric reviews. I've reviewed all of these since then. Nevertheless, that very first review was a little bit tentative, and I think that it's not really fair to leave that online when The Golden Dawn is really the linchpin of modern esotericism. There would probably not be any Wicca nowadays if there wasn't The Golden Dawn first. There would probably not be, well, there would certainly not be Thelema. And the huge boom in occult interest that we see today, I think it's obvious we can pin it down to The Golden Dawn. Now, John Michael Greer, who is a giant in the world of ceremonial magic, writes an introduction. There's first of all a preface by Chick Cicero and Sandra Tabitha Cicero, who have taken over the custodianship, can you say that, of the Golden Dawn since the last temple closed, right? So they got together and they reignited the embers of the order, and so whatever is available today is thanks to them. And John Michael Greer writes this foreword in which he acknowledges that this really encompasses everything that was known until then, at least what was available to the founders of the Golden Dawn, William Robert Woodman, William Wynne Westcott, and Samuel Liddell McGregor Mathers, who were three Freemasons who were interested in the esoteric occult side of Freemasonry, which, well, from what I've understood by speaking to modern Freemasons, that's not really a major center of interest for many of them, but it certainly was for them, and they got together and put this together. There were stories about how they got this from some German wizards and so on and so forth, but the likelihood is that they just put together what they had researched and found, and the result is it's a compendium of, where to start? Astrology, tarot, Kabbalah, geomancy, Enochian magic, and ceremonial magic all together. And it's all here. It's all here. So previous to this, I guess the most complete book of occult science would have been the 3 books of occult science by Agrippa, and that's going back quite a while. So you can see that Llewellyn have got an accompanying volume. It's exactly the same size. It's the same style of cover, and so on and so forth. Speaking about the cover, let me just talk about that for a moment, because I know that my viewers do like me going over the quality of the books that I review. This one has got a dust cover. It's kind of waxy, and it's nice enough. It's a magnet for fingerprints. I've washed it and it takes washing very well, thank goodness. You just need a wet cloth. You can even add soap if you're so inclined, or you can use rubbing alcohol. I'm not sure if I would go that far necessarily, but I'm sure it would take it. It's a very robust dust cover, and I'm not a huge fan of dust covers, but in this particular case, the construction of the book is a little bit too flimsy for my liking. The cover is very, very thin, as you can see, and it's covered in this just regular paper, right? It's stamped with this gold writing, which is lovely. But yeah, it's very, very thin. If I show you the thickness of the spine there, can you see? It's so flimsy. It's so thin. However, it's, I've had this for 5 years, and I use it. I pull it out very regularly. You can see that the spine has bowed like this. Which is, exactly what you'd expect from something this flimsy, but it's it's holding together quite nicely. Let me just pause for a second. Yeah, that is one thing about the book, is that it's quite unwieldy. It's very heavy, and I usually use this little stand that I've got over here when I'm consulting it. Right, what do you get inside? Well, these are actually the grade papers and the descriptions of the techniques, the magical techniques, up to Adeptus Minor. So that's about that's all the way through the first grade, and it's the first part of the second grade. You don't get parts 2 and 3 of the second grade, or any of the third grade up to Ipsissimus. But this is everything that you would learn before becoming, really a custodian of the Golden Dawn, right? So in book 1, you get knowledge, lectures, and instructional papers from neophyte all the way to Adeptus Minor. There we go. Then in book 2, you get the rituals of the Outer Order, full description of the ceremonies, the initiations into each grade, and so on. It's very, very clearly written, clearly set out, so that it's very obvious what needs to be done. You have to remember that this really is designed for a group of people. It's designed for it wasn't designed as a self-initiation. However, and I'll just get back to the contents in a moment. The material inside is so complete that I would say that it's absolutely worth getting, even if you're not intending to set up your own temple, Okay, moving on. In book 3, you have the rituals of the inner order. So the inner order would be the second grade, right? Starting at the Adeptus, and then, the Adeptus Minor, the Adepti is the various Adepti. So Adeptus Minor is the first Adeptus, and then Adeptus Major is the second Adeptus, but it's not present in these particular papers. I don't know if they still exist, if anyone in the world still has any paper on which the higher grades are described, but these available to the public, which is more than most people will ever read in their lifetime, let's be honest. They stop at Adeptus Minor. Then with book 4, you have the primary techniques of magical practice, the rituals of the pentagram, of the hexagram, etc., etc., ritual of the rose cross, and so on. Very, very potent stuff there, which of course the members of the old order were very unhappy about publishing, right, when Israel Regardie published all of this. Then in book 5, you've got the inner order teachings on the neophyte grade. Then in book 6, you've got the ceremonial magic, so a description of what's going on there. In book 7, you've got clairvoyance, talismans, sigils, etc. There we go. And then in book 8, there's divination with geomancy, a very underrated method of divination. Maybe I should do an Esoteric Saturday video on that. And then the tarot, of course. And then finally book 9, the angelic tables, in which they attempted to adapt the Enochian system into the rest of their system, right? A lot of people are quite skeptic about how effective they were in achieving that particular goal, but yeah, it's up to individuals to decide on that. So yeah, the preface by Chicken Tabitha Cicero is very interesting about the history of the order. Chicken Tabitha Cicero are the current custodians of the Golden Dawn tradition. In the 70s, when the last Stella Matutina temple closed, you could say that the lineage had come to an end, but Chicken Tabitha Cicero rekindled those embers, and a few very well known occultists are to this day members under the auspices of Chicken Tabitha Cicero. Then there's an introduction by John Michael Greer himself, the great mage, talking about the influence of the Golden Dawn through the ages, or through the last 100 and or so years at least. Likening it to the 3 books of occult philosophy, of course, but also the Picatrix before it. There we go. And then there's the introduction to the very first edition by Israel Regardie. So there we go. And then we get actually stuck in with the material itself, and it's all the basics, everything that you've learned through any book, any modern book that is, probably has its origins here. In recent times, there's been a growing interest in older books, looking into the Hygromantia, into the 3 books of occult philosophy, and into many, many other much older grimoires. But if you've picked anything up since the 80s up until probably about 5 years ago, to be honest, 5, maybe 10 years ago, then this would have been where it stemmed from. And anything else would really have been a comparison with the Golden Dawn. So the influence of the Golden Dawn's system on modern magic is undeniable. And I know I've made a few videos over the past couple of months where I talk about how I have really diverged away from some of their set in stone, you could say, dogmas. But it's, I started off by thinking, maybe they are blinds, maybe they are ways of keeping the wider public away from this strong material. But actually, the more I look into it, the more I just think that no, it's probably just a question of to each their own. And they like to have the eagle for Scorpion as a water sign. Well, fine. I mean, they had their reasons for doing that. The more I look into it, the more I do see that they did have their reasons for doing it. They just made decisions that I wouldn't have made. And the great thing about these esoteric materials is that you have the agency to decide what works for you and what does not work for you, and to make adjustments as you wish. So there we go. So now we're getting into the geomancy stuff, and there are a few pages, yes, in the middle here, which are in color. It seems like all of their color illustrations were gathered into these, I don't know, maybe about possibly 20 pages, something like that. About a quarter of the way through the book. There are no further color illustrations throughout the book. There are plenty of black and white illustrations, but if it refers to a color illustration at any point, then they're in these pages over here. As you can see, it was quite a colourful tradition. Some people might even go as far as to say garish, but it's all symbolism, right? And very stark symbolism. Plenty of people have added their own artistic flair to these bases. But yeah, this is where it's at. I'd like to do an Esoteric Saturday on the Rose Cross as well. That would be an interesting thing to get into. All right. Yes, of course. The what are they called? The watchtowers, the Enochian angelic tables there. What else can I show you? Yeah, the setup of the rituals, the setup of the initiations, and so on and so forth. It's all very, very clear, very well marked out, very easy to follow. And I think that's probably about it. I might mention a few of the very famous people who were members of the Golden Dawn, some of whom might surprise you. I was surprised to find out that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a member. I had not realised that. For those of you who may not know him, he's the author of Sherlock Holmes, whom you certainly do know. The author of Dracula, Bram Stoker, was also a member of the Golden Dawn. Edith Nesbit, who wrote The Railway Children, was a member of the Golden Dawn. So that's actually one of the characteristics of one of the defining features of the Golden Dawn, is that they accepted women at a time when women were generally not accepted into secret societies, and not just accepted them, but accepted them very much on par with the male members. Pamela Coleman Smith, of course, the illustrator of the Rider-Waite tarot deck. She was a member as well. Who else? Arthur Machen, William Butler Yeats, of course. Yeats, beg your pardon. Who else do we have? Well, Aleister Crowley. Who else? Some people say that he may have been one of the reasons why the order disbanded in the first place, right? By the time Israel Regardie arrived in the 1930s, the order was already breaking up into factions, and in fact the order that he joined was the Stella Matutina, which was an offshoot, one of the offshoots that Dion Fortune had joined as well. There we go. So that's it, guys. That's my review of the Golden Dawn 7th edition, revised and edited by the tremendous John Michael Greer. Thanks ever so much for watching the video. Thanks very much for your patience. I hope you enjoyed the review. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up. It really helps me, and it makes the channel sustainable on the long term. And please consider subscribing if you haven't already. I've got many other esoteric book reviews on the channel, and I'd be delighted if you cared to check a few of them out. You might be interested. Thanks very much for your time. See you very soon.